Everyone, welcome to my messy office. It's a real spontaneous decision, really, to go live. Not something I do a lot, and I'm not real good at it, so forgive me if you comment. I probably won't see it until later. However, I've been just thinking about our activities tomorrow, and I felt like it would be good to just share some thoughts on why we're doing things the way we're doing them. So most of you know that tomorrow at the threshing floor we're going to be fasting and praying during the daytime for Mexico. Then at 6 p.m. we will have a corporate time of intercession, and then we're going to follow that time of intercession with a meal. So why are we doing it that way? I wanted to talk a little bit about this concept. So at Seymour House of Prayer, when we used to pray for nations specifically, we called those events the Intercessory Celebration of Nations. And I feel like celebration is a key aspect of intercession that is often neglected, really. And so I wanted to talk about fasting and celebration. So question, why are we fasting during the day? Some of us at least. And why are we breaking the time of intercession with a meal? So let's discuss that a little bit. Personally, I don't typically fast out of a place of mourning. I feel like that is more so an old covenant paradigm of fasting, which was appropriate prior to the finished work of the cross, which was appropriate prior to the time that Jesus came and shed his blood. Now, I do still engage in what you might consider mourning fasts, like Lou Engle when he calls a solemn assembly. Often I'll fast along with them in regards to whatever they are talking about, whatever they're interceding for. But primarily, I fast out of a place of preparation. And I wanted to read the passage to you where Jesus talks to the disciples of John about fasting. And he says, this is Mark chapter 2, starting in verse 18. The disciples of John and the Pharisees were fasting. And then they came to Jesus and they said, why do the disciples of John and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? Jesus said to them, can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is still with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and they will fast in those days. He then said, no one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, or else the new pulls away from the old, and the tear is made worse. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined, but new wine must be put into new wineskins. Now, contextually, this is not something we've discussed often, that what Jesus is saying is in the context of fasting, he's talking about new wineskins. So there is a New Testament paradigm of fasting that is in fact a new wineskin. And for our purposes, it's a new wineskin of intercession. So I call this celebratory fasting. So yes, the bridegroom has temporarily been taken away from us. And so we're fasting in preparation for what? We are fasting in preparation for the wedding feast of the Lamb. So when we're fasting, especially for, in this case, nations, the nation of Mexico, then we're fasting in preparation for those people who are called to be a part of the bride to come in. And it's in preparation and anticipation of a great celebration. So in our culture, it's a little hard, I think, for us to liken this time of fasting to a wedding feast, because a huge meal is not typically a part of American weddings. There might be a meal before the wedding, etc., but it's a little different. I think often in terms of holidays, Christmas, and especially Thanksgiving. So when I think of celebratory fasting, I'm thinking of Thanksgiving Day, where you're not even going to eat, you don't eat breakfast, you don't eat lunch, you don't eat anything until maybe 4 p.m. And all day long, you're busy. You're cleaning, you're cooking, you're getting things ready, you're preparing, but you're not fasting because you're sad. You're not fasting out of a place of mourning. You're fasting in anticipation of a great celebration when everyone is coming together and you're going to eat this huge, amazing meal. You're going to fellowship and see people that you haven't seen in a long time. You're going to sit around afterwards and watch the game. It's a huge celebration. And so for me, when I'm fasting during the daytime in prayer for a particular nation, it's out of a place of anticipation of a great celebration that many are coming to the Lord. And so it's a different thought process, and I'll just throw this in there while we're talking about fasting. My personal favorite type of fasting that I tend to do is what I call the fast of lovesick longing. And I don't know if this works the same when you're adults. Yeah, I got married at 19, and so I remember being a teenager, though. Do you remember being a teenager? Do you remember when you are so caught up with somebody? It's the only thing, you're thinking about them all the time. When you're not with them, you're wanting to be with them. When you are with them, you're just hanging on every word they say. You're completely caught up with that person. And so your body just kind of sort of shuts down. Everything about you is geared towards that person. And when I find myself in a place where I realize I haven't eaten today, and it's because I've been caught up in the presence of the Lord, have just been thinking about Him, have been meditating, have been in prayer, whatever. I'm in His presence and I find myself not eating, then I realize this is not a planned fast. I find myself in that place and I realize I am in a fast of lovesick longing, and I just ride the wave until that season is done, and then I'll eat again. So to me, that is my favorite fast. It's that just complete being enraptured by His presence. I mean, that is celebratory. To me, that is the new wineskin of New Testament fasting. It's just to be completely caught up in Him. So, when we're fasting during the day, and then we're going to be meeting together and engaging in a time of intercession, specifically for this nation of Mexico this time, then we're going to break afterwards with a meal. Now, why do we do that? Well, it's really because in the Old Testament, having a meal together is a key part of establishing a covenant. It wouldn't even matter, and we see this paradigm in the Old Testament, if you are actually enemies with the person that you're establishing covenant with, and your covenant is to say, you're not going to hurt me and I'm not going to hurt you, and we don't trust each other enough to believe that will happen without us actually cutting covenant. So you're actually at odds with one another. You're still going to sit down and have a meal. Now, them and their party may be at one table and you and your party may be at another table, but you're still eating together because it's a part of establishing covenant. Now, this is why, just a little bit of New Testament exegesis, this is why in the New Testament, when Paul is talking, 1 Corinthians 5:11, when Paul's talking about the brother who claims to be of Christ, and yet he lives a completely immoral, ungodly lifestyle and will not heed correction, Paul says what? He says, with such a man, do not even eat. Now, he's not trying to be condemnatory. He's saying you're establishing covenant with those you eat with. And because of that, you can't eat with just anyone. So he says that because of this context, that eating together, breaking bread together is a part of covenant. So the reason that we finish this day of fasting and prayer and intercession for a particular nation with a meal is to seal that intercession in covenant with one another and with the Lord. And so, again, it is an aspect of the celebration. So, obviously, our potluck meal that we're going to have after this time of prayer for Mexico is Mexican themed, right? So, we're celebrating the culture, we're celebrating the nation, we're celebrating what God is doing and is going to do as a result of our intercessions. And we are sealing that together with Him and with one another in a place of covenant in a covenant meal. So, just a quick kind of rundown about how we apply fasting and even feasting in intercession and what that looks like. I just wanted to give some explanation. I'll probably talk a little bit about it tomorrow at our gathering in praying for Mexico, but I thought it might be good to share it with everyone because I know some people will be praying with us, and I'll probably post a prayer guide here on Facebook, so if you can't attend, you can still join us in prayer. So I wanted to put that out so you can be praying in faith with us and understand the concepts and the biblical concepts behind how our intercession and our time of intercession is working. God bless you. We'll talk later.